Hello, I am back at it again, this time with, like last time, I made a video about 10 different tips for Heroforge that I simply couldn't fit into on any other videos, so I figured I would make another separate video going over some of my own personal tips. And the first one I want to go over, I have briefly mentioned this before, but not as thoroughly as I will here, and that is just basically every single model. This height chart up here, it is not accurate to real life. I mean, if you look at where our model started, which was somewhere around here, this is supposedly almost 6 foot tall, but to me this looks like an early teenager. Honestly, the size of the head compared to the body and all the proportions, it suggests it's a very small model. Now, obviously, if you're going to print this out, then going over the XL line here might be a problem because it will make the model more expensive. However, otherwise, I would recommend going close to 7 feet. Like 7 feet to me, this looks like a person who's tall. This looks like a person who's like just above 6 feet. Then if you want to go even further, I mean, how you can go into this, but that's a little extreme. Basically, what I'm saying is the average height of a person is not going to add up from real life to the height in Heroforge. I would recommend going somewhere between 6 and 8 to 7 feet for just average height models. And it will make them look a lot more realistic in my opinion. Speaking of realistic, as people who have watched some of my other videos will know, I don't like bulky things, which is why there's no gloves that I like more than these prosthetics here. And there's a lot more you can do with just adding these prosthetics, and I did show this last time as well, but I wanted to go over two other things that you can do with it. And the first is, if you want a wrapped glove, then you can do this, and if you color the original glove like a glove, let's say we take this and we do that, and then you put some other thing on the wrap, it will look as though you've bound this glove up with something for whatever reason. But there is something else you can do with the prosthetic glove, which is, let's say you really like fingerless gloves. You're one of those people. So you put this on, but then you're like, what is this wrist line here? Then you can put this prosthetic glove on again, but this time, if we color the prosthetic, this one like this, and we then give the prosthetic hand skin color, and we make it look like it's an actual hand. Now, obviously, this is not quite as sharp as the normal hand, but it does the trick. Nobody's gonna look close enough to notice. And now you have a fingerless glove that has a longer, sleeve wrist thing than the normal glove does. And now, one more thing with this glove that I will go over is there's a lot of people know how to make people look bloody with decals. I mean, it's easy to just smack down like an arm scar here, and put some blood on it like this, and make it look like somebody has a wound. But it's not as common. I see people do properly clothing that is bloodied. So what I would recommend you do, if you take this color here, dirty gloves that we have, and you make the middle layer red, and you pull it down into this dark kind of red like this, and then you pull up the roughness to make it look like the glove is kind of soaked, or you pull down the roughness, sorry, and now you'll see it has this kind of shiny, soggy look to it, but because the high and the low layers of the color are still, the same brown as the original glove, it maintains the look. And then again, you can go back to the previous tip and smack down the wraps. Obviously now the lower layer here is colored wrong, but you see the point. Like you might put wraps over it because it's bleeding, and it all sorts to add up. Now one more glove thing, but not with this glove. This is another tip altogether. Is just a small side tip, more like, which is my favorite gauntlet in the game. Or not the game. Heroforge is not a game, but with how many hours I have on it, you'd think it's a game. But football player's glove is actually my favorite gauntlet in all of Heroforge, because I know it doesn't look like a gauntlet. You can make it look like a gauntlet if you color certain things with plate. You can make the inside here leather, etc. So it works, but the reason I like this is purely because it's not nearly as bulky. I mean, if we look at some of the actual gauntlets in the game, I call it a game again. If we look at, God forbid, the heavy metal gauntlet, I mean, what is this? How are you supposed to swing this? This thing weighs more. This thing, unironically, I think weighs more than fucking, like, this. I think it'd be easier to swing this thing around than to try and swing anything with this gauntlet. It's just... Anyway, anyway, moving on. The last thing that I will go over, and I promise this is the last glove tip I have, is you can actually enhance gloves by putting on rings. And it doesn't work with all of them, but let's just use this new glove as an example. If we put on 4 sets of this exact ring here, it will begin to look as though you have kind of a as though it's part of the armor, you know? When you have several ones in a row like this, it doesn't really look like rings. It looks like some kind of knuckles, you know? It's an extra reinforcement of the armor so that this can be used to punch, you know? You're swinging this at someone, and you've got your little Infinity Thanos gauntlet here about to execute Tony Stark. Anyway, that's it for in terms of that's it as far as gloves go. The next thing I want to go over is just a very basic tip regarding how to make clothes look snowy. So let's take just a basic color here, and let's say this is meant to be fur, and then we can make the jacket, we can make black. So obviously I'm monocoloring here, but that's on purpose. So the first thing we do, obviously, I've said this before, is lower the roughness on this, or raise the roughness on this fur. It looks awful when it's all shiny and sticky. And then to make something look snowy, you go to the high layer of the clothing and you drag it up towards white. Now, obviously decals is the best way to make something look snowy, but believe me, if you combine decals and you color things accordingly, and we can do the same thing with the black here. If we pull this up into white, it looks as though there's snow sticking to this clothing. And now, obviously, if we added a big stain here of snow over the shoulder or whatever, it would just add further to it. And speaking of snow, if we go into base, a lot of people, obviously when they do snow, they'll just take this base here and they'll color it in white, and then they'll leave it at that. But there's something you can do with another one that I would recommend, which is the stone textured base. And what I will show you is a bit funky with this one is, say we just take a base brown, we smack it down everywhere. Now most of these are, let's just use Platinum Wish for snow right now. Most of these are normal, but one of them, yeah, you see this one here? If I color this, it just looks like a few of them are white. But if we color this one, specifically this one, the color overlaps onto the others, and it goes a long way in making it look like there's snow, not just on the ones I colored, but on the other ones as well. And obviously now, again, we go back to the previous tip, and we take the dark color, and we drag that up towards white, and you see, we can drag the lower one into white as well. And now suddenly we have this very nice, stony but snowy covered base. And this works with sand as well, by the way. All these tips work with sand. The only difference is that it's not as common that you would have sand literally all over your clothing, even when you're walking through a desert, unless you're specifically in some kind of sandstorm. But yes, anyway, moving on. I'm gonna flags, yes. So decals. There's something a lot of people I think don't know, is that you can edit the exact size of a lot of these decals to create different patterns than what they actually give us. So let's take this cross, right? Maybe you don't want the cross. So what you can do is, if we make everything blue except for one line, we can take this outer line, and then we go back into decals, and we go up here and we raise this up like this. And then now we raise the scale, and you see it makes the entire cross bigger, right? So it's also zooming it out. And if we pull this towards the edges, now you see we get a very basic pattern. I mean, you can toy around and make a lot of these, but for the sake of this example, I'll just do this one for now. It just gives us a nice like trim on both sides of the banner. Very, very simple, but this can go a long way. And I recommend anyone to toy around with these things, and just find funny little patterns or new symbols. that aren't just the symbols they give us. Speaking of decals, if we'll need to color his face for this one, we'll give him some eyes as well. Put that on and just smack this on and give him some hair. Now, a lot of people when they will give him, we need a helmet as a close visitor like this. You can see it already shades the inside here. But what a lot of people will do, I've noticed, is they want the helmet to shade the face completely. So they'll just like, oh, okay, I need the face to be dark. Let's just take black and make his face black. And this works, but it doesn't look entirely realistic or faded. And if you ever take the helmet off, you know, you're gonna look like Justin Trudeau, which you don't want. So we go back and we take the helmet off, and then we put on a very specific decal on his face, which is the where is the Batman decal? There it is. We take this, then we take his skin color, this, we duplicate it, we drag this down really dark, we smack it back down, we can make it even darker with something like this, and now we put the helmet back on, and it has a much more decent looking faded look. Now, if you don't like this red kind of shine that all of the skin colors has, you can just take the skin, you can disable it as skin, and it still keeps the same colors, but it no longer shines as bright. And this goes for all skin, by the way. You can just disable the skin in the menu here. And the final tip that I will go over, the last tip for our weird Predator, Thanos, Terminator, Justin Trudeau character here is if we go into decals, I mean this doesn't have to be decals, you can do this with items as well. But we take something big like this and we twist it. Now you'll begin to understand why I said Predator in a moment. If we turn this right, and I didn't come up with this original idea, so, not to do with a Predator, mind you, at least, but if you take any color, anything at all, in fact we can even use the base decal that we got, and we enable transparent plastic. Now this option I don't see a lot of people use, but it can be used for some really funky stuff. Now you can see it's already transparent, but if we drag all these colors into white, then suddenly it looks like this character is beginning to turn invisible, I suppose. And I don't really tend to do a lot of sci-fi models, so you know, obviously the first thing you think of is like Predators, but just this can be used for a lot of cool magic effects as well. And just I would recommend, and this is not bound by color, by the way. I mean you can do this and it starts to glow blue instead, or but yes, those are the 10 tips I have for you this time. And if you like this video, then press like. If you dislike this video, then press dislike, and goodbye.